Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together. Thanks for joining us again. You're either watching this video on a 70-inch television or you're trying to escape your children in the bathroom. But either way, you are welcome. We're going to continue our series of bridging both the Build Your Library Kindergarten and the Torchlight curriculums that we've been blending together. And we've been doing these kind of almost every 2 weeks. This week is a 2-week cycle. Some weeks it might be a 1-week cycle. But we're doing these kind of reviews. And this week, we went south of the border to Mexico. Yeah. We had a ton of fun.
We did.
We did a full 2 weeks. This was a full 2-week session, and we had a great time. So what was the first thing that we kind of learned about is that we narrowed the focus. That was kind of a cool thing that we did. It was a little bit different. Every week it feels like we're learning something new. We're learning better ways to approach this kind of blended curriculum. We're kind of learning through the process.
Yeah, well, a lot of times it's very broad, right? Last video, if you were there for our last video, we talked about Native peoples of the United States. It was like studying hundreds of countries in 1 week, and it felt so overwhelming. With this, it kind of brought things back. There was some really strong focuses. Family was a huge one. All the books had big, strong family ties. A lot about the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos. I'm going to apologize right now.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of Spanish words.
We are very Northern European, and we're sorry. But we probably bought some Spanish words. And then a lot about food, which also kind of goes in with family.
We'll have a lot more on that.
We talked a little bit as we were going through this about, oh my gosh, another book on the Day of the Dead. But or another book on food, although we love Mexican food.
It was Day of the Dead. A lot on the migrating monarch butterflies,
right?
And then a lot of food, and so it kind of came back. I remember
we thought as adults, you were like, "Oh, if I have to read another book on the Day of the Dead," but you know what? At the end of 2 weeks, our 5-year-old daughter, she knew all about the Day of the Dead. She knew about the monarch butterflies. She knew a lot about food and about family culture, Abuela and Abuelo, and all the different words. And so I think that narrow focus was actually good, even though as adults we were kind of like, we've seen this over and over.
It goes with that theme we were talking about with the U.S. study where we said, hey, focus on your local area. With the Native American, with the Native peoples thing, we were really focusing on the people in our area. Canada kind of focusing, we kind of talked about maybe focusing on the city just north of us in Vancouver. Just kind of like developing these kind of ideas and themes and seeing how our learner enjoys them. I think we're going to be making little tweaks going forward, and this was a good one. Like, even though it was a little tiresome towards the end for us, she really liked it, and it really I finally felt like she was getting something out of it other than just going through the motions and reading a bunch of books and doing all these types of things. So it was a really nice thing to kind of narrow the focus. So maybe you can take that into your homeschooling environment. And maybe kind of make the similar changes. Next thing that we saw, we had a lot of language. This was the first time we actually encountered like a different language. And we're going to be writing that language all the way south.
We are. It was nice because a lot of the books that we used either had Spanish words interlaced or they were completely bilingual, and we were able to, pull in different words as we saw them and said, oh, this word's the same word. We were able to draw those connections for our learner. So that was really cool. We liked the language part of it in these 2 weeks.
Yeah, it kind of carried through like almost all the media that we did. So let's get a little bit into the books.
Yeah.
Now, we know the last few weeks we've been using library books. And they have a nice pretty sheen, and they're reflecting off these lights.
We're trying our best.
We're going to make sure to hold them not like this, like this. So let's talk about
We're learning. It's a learning and process,
We are learning. Okay. So the first one is Danza. And this was I think, our learner's probably her favorite book.
This was her favorite book. Danza is the main selection from Torchlight's week. This is about a famous dancer, Amalia Hernandez, I believe is the right, of the Mexican folkloric ballet. So really fun. It tells her story. It tells about basically the ballet made choreography of native traditional dances and brought these to kind of the world stage. It was really neat. It was also great because we paired it with some super videos from YouTube because the Mexican folkloric ballet is still going. And so it was really fun for our learner. She loved this. This was her absolute favorite book. And this author...
The author and illustrator also wrote...
is going to be repeated.
Dear Primo.
This is the Build Your Library selection. So it's really funny that the two curriculums use the same author but different books.
Yeah, we kind of realized that after we read the second one. We were like, wait a minute, this looks like the same artwork.
This looks very familiar.
Somebody's ripping off this guy's artwork. Well, it turns out to be that guy.
This is a really cool book. I like this a lot. our learner enjoyed it. Basically, it's the contrast between how one cousin lives in the city in the United States and one cousin lives in rural Mexico, and the differences in their life and what their home looks like and what their school looks like and their play and free time and things.
But also similarities and differences and things that,
Right.
one cousin likes about the other and another one that he wants to be more like his other
Right.
cousin. So it was a nice, like, kind of cross-cultural
Right.
experience. And also nice, too, that it kind of just shows that, the culture can cross borders, which is a nice thing to know
Right.
as well.
So this was also fantastic. We would highly recommend both of those books.
Next one,
I really loved this.
Lucia and the
Luchadora. So this is about a little girl who wants to be a superhero, and the boys on the playground are saying that girls can't be superheroes, and she talks to her grandmother.
Seems rational, yeah. No.
And she gets a luchadora mask, and then she starts being a superhero, and she ends up saving the day in the end. It was a really great, empowering story for young girls, and it gave kind of a cool look at part of Mexican culture.
It was.
So we really liked this one. There's a second one.
It wasn't as good as the first
Yeah,
one.
it's Lucia, the Luchadora, and the Million Masks,
Yeah.
and it wasn't as good. If you only have time for one, we would say to get the original. It was really a cute read and had a good message, so we really liked that.
Really good one, yeah. Next one is A Gift from Abuela. Now this was, I thought, was going back to, like, I think the things that I talked about the last video with the Native peoples, was that this was a very emotional book. Like, I found myself a few moments, like, getting really kind of emotional.
Invested.
Story about a grandmother and her granddaughter, and she's saving money to get her granddaughter a gift. And as she's saving the money, the country is going through this kind of economic turmoil, and inflation is going crazy, and so the money she's saving can't buy the gifts the gift that she wants to get her granddaughter. I think it was a bicycle. I think that's what she's trying to save up for. And then a huge stretch of time goes by, and the granddaughter discovers the grandmother's stash of money, and there was some, like, conflict between the grandmother, and she realized that her grandmother was trying to save even just a few pesos for her granddaughter. It was a very emotional book, and it was a nice family bridging the
themes
gaps,
come
culture. Got a little bit of the Mexican history with a little bit of the inflation issues that they had. I don't know what decade this was set in, but I think maybe 80s or 90s, sometime in that time frame. Really nice, cute, fun story, and I think it'll give you something for both. Maybe if you have your grandmother who's part of the homeschooling environment, might be a nice book to get and have grandma read to the daughter. So really nice. I like this. Yeah, I like this one a lot.
Very sweet. Very sweet book.
Adelita.
Yeah, this is by Tommy DePaula. This is a Mexican Cinderella story, but it deviated. There wasn't the fairy godmother. It wasn't magical in any way, but it gave a really great view of culture. Our daughter loved this book. She absolutely just adored this book, and she wanted to read it over and over.
She loves fairy tales. She loves all the Disney princesses, so it fits really nice into that kind of mix for our daughter, but maybe doesn't carry across to the boys or whatever. But a really good book if you got a daughter there that you want to kind of bridge.
Yeah, this was a very nice book.
Absolutely.
So you'll notice that we didn't have any books here on the Day of the Dead after we talked about how much we did that. That's because the What Do You Celebrate book for Torchlight talks about it. It's also, we have the
celebrations book around the world.
Right, we have the Children Just Like Me celebrations.
We also got
our alternate spines.
A Day of the Dead specific storybook as well.
I think we had 2 other Day of the Dead books.
Yeah.
Neither of them were our favorites. So because there's many of them, we didn't want to recommend one here specifically because there is something already covered in the curriculum for it. And there's lots of Day of the Dead books, and we found them all to be kind of similarly good. Yeah. So, whatever you have at your local library is probably fine. These were our favorites that really stood out to us.
Absolutely.
Separately. So.
Absolutely. So let's get into the movies. We have
Speaking of Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead. We have 2 Disney Plus movies. One of them was part of, I think, the Fox buyout.
Right.
So these 2 movies kind of came out at the same time. One, obviously, everybody knows about is Coco. Through the Pixar studio. The other one was The Book of Life, which kind of came out right at the same time, and that was, I think, produced by Guillermo del Toro.
Right.
So, 2 wildly different stories, but very similar frameworks, where they both talk about the Day of the Dead. But very different story.
And they both showed a different view of what that side of the, I don't know what the land of the dead was called, but so they showed very different view. We would say the Book of Life was highly stylized. It was very interesting. We liked it.
It was a little like, if you want something a little bit different, it was very Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro is very known for his styling, very abstract thinking, presenting of kind of hyper stylized, whether it's like, Pacific Rim or Book of Life or I think Pan's Labyrinth. He's he's an amazing thinker and amazing artist. And he puts that through in his work. So Book of Life I liked it because it was really wild styling, something you probably have never seen in an animated feature before.
It was pretty amazing just for the art of it.
But obviously, I think the better story is Coco.
Oh, yeah. The story of Book of Life was not as good. We did enjoy it as a family. It was kind of a fun, and the stakes weren't quite as high. It was a little sillier. We liked it. Coco, of course, is an Academy Award winner. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, you must see it. Yeah. We've watched it before a couple of times, and I was like, we'll watch it again because that's what we're doing for Mexico. We watched it last night, and we were reminded at the end, I was crying at the end and going, this movie is just so good. Every time we watch it, this movie is amazing. Yeah. And I never get tired of it because it has such great themes of family. And that was even some of the themes in the Book of Life too, was about family and doing the right thing. And so good messages in both of those movies and available now on Disney Plus. Yeah. So super convenient.
Great, super convenient, great pickup. So let's get into the recipes.
We did a lot of food.
We didn't plan on it, but obviously Mexican cuisine is awesome. And we didn't plan on doing a lot of food. But we did a lot of food.
We did a lot of food.
So the first thing we did was the arroz con leche.
Which was out of the Cooking Class Global Feast cookbook that's with Torchlight. We're using it with both Torchlight and Build Your Library. It was super easy.
Super easy.
Our kids loved it. It was, in fact, too easy to make. I don't think that we need to know how easy and delicious this is.
Yes.
We're going to make it more often.
It's going to become a normal Booza staple.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And we also did a recipe for churros.
Yes. What's the gentleman's name? We've become addicted to his channel.
Yes, it's Preppy Kitchen, we'll link it in. Go down and you'll see it in the notes.
You started cranking out churros last night. It was a very dangerous situation.
Oh my God, we just kept eating churros. I mean, they were so easy to make.
It was a 4-alarm food fire. I mean, it was out of control.
They were so good. We made it like the cinnamon chocolate dipping sauce he said to make with it. Just stop watching right now. Go to look at Preppy Kitchen because it was so good.
Churros. The next thing we did is the Berea Tacos, and if I'm butchering that, I'm sorry, but it's a wet taco. Great for the husbands and the spicy lovers out there.
Too spicy for the kids.
So it's a chuck roast that's cooked in a sauce, and the corn tortillas are dipped in the sauce and then cooked on the flat top with the meat and cheese inside. I consumed an unhealthy amount of them, and it was wonderful, and I'm going to do it again. And I don't have any problems with that. I think we'll link the Business Insider video that I first saw, and then I think I'll link the video of the recipe.
He'll link all the videos. Yeah. It was very good. And we also did nachos one night. We did burritos one night. We did enchiladas. We did a lot of things that we would normally make. These are just the new recipes that we tried, and we will absolutely make all of them again. So.
Oh, and I also did the bread.
That's right. We did pan de muertos.
De muerto, like the bread of the dead.
Right. It's kind orange flavor.
Well, the one I chose was an orange flavor. I don't know if it's typical, but it was orange. It was orange juice with orange zest.
Right.
And it was kind of this nice little loaf, and you cut into it. It was very soft, almost kind of like, gosh, it was
almost like a potato roll because it was super soft. It was really great with some butter on it.
I'll link it in there. It was just a video, it had like 1,000 views, and I followed the recipe, and it was pretty good, and I enjoyed it.
The kids enjoyed making all of this stuff except the Berea Tacos, and we loved all of it. It was delish, and so we highly recommend, especially the churros.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the videos. We already kind of talked a little bit about it, but we did a lot of videos on food, which we watched more videos on food and more videos on food.
Lots of taco histories.
Lots of taco histories. There's a great series on Netflix about tacos if you wanted to catch that. If you have a little bit of an older learner.
Right. So there is TVMA because there is some language. So if you have that, and it's all subtitled.
It's all subtitled. So
not for your younger folks.
I've enjoyed this series. It's very, very stylized documentary. It's very enjoyable if you check it out. I think it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. It's on Netflix. But it's for adults.
And then we also paired with, as you said earlier, we did the folkloric ballet. It was really cool to watch. Right. So a lot of great videos. Definitely go onto YouTube, check out a lot of videos. If you have any questions or concerns, there was a couple really nice Day of the Dead videos as well. So really kind of get ingrained into it. The monarch butterfly migrations, a lot of great videos on that. So definitely fold in those together
Mm-hmm.
and put those into your video repertoire. Last one is the crafts. We did a bunch of crafts.
Yes.
Papel de picado, which is kind of like a Day of the Dead.
So it's paper
It's like a
cut.
snowflake. It's like a
Yeah,
snowflake cut.
if you watch the very end of or very beginning of Coco,
in Coco,
they do those animated them.
Yeah, they're kind of hanging everywhere.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's like a hanging banner, and it's almost like you would cut it out of snowflakes, where you fold it up and you cut pieces, and then when you open it up, it has a symmetrical pattern. And so they did that on a bunch of different construction paper. We hung up the banners in the house, and then we also did from the collage book, which is a Torchlight selection. It was making paper mache masks and making watercolor capes.
So for the Luchadora,
that's what we did to tie it in. That wasn't the intention of the curriculum.
Yeah.
Which is my one kind of criticism of using that collage book. I like that the book that we are using for Build Your Library, we're using Around the World Art and Activities. You could also use Global Art, which is what she calls out now in the current 2020 version of the curriculum. But for Torchlight, it's this collage book that really has no tie-in to the destination that you're studying. So we made a tie-in and made them like Luchadora masks and capes. But
it was wildly popular.
The kids loved it. But I would say
popular.
Really look at the craft for the week and see if you can't try to somehow fold it into what you're doing, because otherwise it's completely disconnected.
It's just not like a fabric cape. Like, we painted it, we did watercolors on it, we
it
made
was
pictures.
super
it was
fun.
really cool. I put their names on the back of it, so they've become like capes and also skirts. I mean, lots of usage. So it was a lot of fun.
They really enjoyed it. Just find a way that you can kind of connect it is all I would say, because there's no other connection. This week we also did read another book of Mercy Watson, and we'll talk about that when we get to the end of the whole series. We'll talk about all the Mercy Watson on a separate review video.
Absolutely. So that was Mexico week, but don't end right now. We're heading down to Central America, where we just started this week.
And the Caribbean.
And the Caribbean. Really nice break. So we'll have another review video when we're done with that. Also, before you stop, please hit subscribe right now. Like, just scroll up, and here goes my face going up. Just hit subscribe. Also, we have a podcast. Head on over to iTunes, subscribe there, where you hear our beautiful voices, but not my face as much. More of her face, not so my face. Also, find us on social media. We're always there answering questions, loving to interact with people, giving us good ideas, and interacting with the community as well. Check out the earlier episodes. They're all in the playlist. Have a great time. Also, one last thing. Resource guide right below.
Right.
Huge.
If you want all the videos.
How many? 20, 30
it's
pages?
Like 22 pages of books, videos, recipes, games, all the things that you need for North America study. It's free. So go and grab it. We put a lot of work into it, and we hope it's helpful.
The South America one's almost done.
It is almost done. I've been working really hard on it, you guys.
So that one's the North America one. We got the South America one coming. Little
teaser.
We're giving the people the teasers.
Yeah, just a little teaser. But you want it if you can. We have all the links to videos and everything, so it's really good.
We wish you guys the best. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week. Perfect. Great job.
Cool.
Mwah.